But back to the issue, the own goal today by Labor on boats. So alluded you here on Friday night to that ministerial change. Most of the media missed it, but today, of course, it was front and centre in the Parliament. The movement on temporary protection visas will allow 19,000 people who came illegally by boats to get permanent residence in Australia, all the bells and whistles that will come with that. And of course, the ability to bring their families now to live here permanently as well, which is exactly what they pay the people smugglers for in the first place. Joining me now, former Howard Government Immigration Minister, former Abbott-era Defence Minister, Kevin Andrews. Kevin, welcome back to Credlin and thank you for your time. I discussed this with Dennis. I cannot fathom why Labor would come back to this issue. But I made the point when I spoke to Liberals today who thought this might be now an open door to get some movement on the government's popularity. I remember vividly those briefings after we got into government in 2013 and had the policy of Operation Sovereign Borders. So many of the officials and in the intelligence agency, security chiefs said, if we don't stop them this time, we'll never be able to stop them. We'll be in the position as Europe were, we'll be in the position of the United States. If they start up again, I suspect they're not confident they'll stop them again.
Well, that's a very valid point, Peter. This is ideological fantasy masquerading as public policy. As you've said and Dennis said before, this policy of protecting our borders is built on three pillars: offshore processing, the temporary protection visas, and turn back the boats. And just like a three-legged stool, if you pull away one of those foundations, then the policy will collapse. And anybody who's been close to this in government knows that the people smugglers have a very sophisticated operation. They're just waiting to press the green light again to go. They have connections, as I know from briefings I had in the past, with authorities in various countries, and they're just waiting to put this plan back into place. Now, the boats may not start to flow next week or next month because of the wet season, for example, in the north, but they surely will, and then we'll have this enormous task to try and stop it again.
I guess what also gets me thinking that there's more to it, this forgetting to renew the legal authority in relation to Nauru. It seems, despite all the messages they gave the Australian public before the last election, there's this eternal fight inside Labor from the Labor left, and of course that's the home faction of the Prime Minister, that's making all of these movements now that they're in government.
That's true, Peter. If you look at the different statements that have been made over the last few days by various Labor spokesmen and women, then you can see that there's a conflict within Labor about this very issue, and that's not new. It's a conflict that's been around for a long time. But surely, having put in a place that failed so abysmally last time under Mr Rudd, people should learn the practical lessons of this. And, you know, the Prime Minister talks about being humanitarian and humanity at the heart of his policy. There's nothing humanitarian about children and women drowning at sea. There's nothing humanitarian about putting people on leaky fishing boats in the hope that having paid their $10,000 or so, they'll make their way to Australia. This is not a humanitarian policy. It's a policy which is surely going to lead, once the people smugglers get back into operation, to deaths at sea as it did in the past. And there's only one way to stop it. We've shown it can be stopped, and it shouldn't be a matter of party political ideology from the Labor Party. They should be doing what is needed to protect the borders of Australia.
Before you retired from Parliament the last election, you were the grandfather of the House, so that's the longest serving MP in the House of Representatives, so you've seen a few referenda in your day. What do you make of the way in which this machinery legislation in the Parliament is making available, literally tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer support for the yes camp, and as yet nothing for the no?
It says to me, Peter, that the proponents of the yes case are very concerned about the actual validity of their case and their ability to persuade the Australian people. If they can't be even-handed in the way in which this is presented to the Australian people, which has been the history of referenda for decades in Australia, then they're showing that they've got something to hide. I suspect this will backfire on them. To paraphrase what Paul Keating said once before, if you don't understand what's being proposed, then don't vote for it. And I think increasingly Australians are coming to that view, that the failure to provide detail and now this sort of mechanism, games that are being played, suggests that there's something that's not upfront and straight about the proposal.
Kevin Andrews, thank you.